Our guests today are Tony Pomerleau, who is the chairperson of the Burlington Police Commission, and Kevin Scully, who is the chief of police. I think that it's fair to say that, tragically, within the last couple of months, Vermonters and people in Burlington have become more sensitive to the issue of crime. In many ways, we pride ourselves as a state on being somewhat unique and somewhat different from the rest of the country. But I have to say that during the last number of months, in too many tragic ways, we seem to be following what's going on in other states. And there's been a number of brutal murders, including the double murder here in Burlington. And I've asked Tony and Kevin to join us today, basically to talk about the police department, how we're doing today, where we want to go in the future. Right, let me start off with Commissioner Pomerleau. Tony, you have been with the police department, police commission, for a number of years. Okay, in your judgment, what kind of condition is the police department in today? How are we doing?
Well, I've been on the commission since 1970. Today is by far the best I've seen the police department. The past 5 years particularly, I think we've brought our house in order. We've added on many services such as auxiliary, such as the Park Commission, Park Patrol, and what we seem to have a few years back, we had a lot of difficulties in filling the vacancies. The reason for that was the big turnover, of course, was lack of pay. So we did need presumably a lot more people back then than we had, but at the time it was a little ridiculous for me to come into the city hall and ask for more people when we could not fill our present capacity people. So today we are up there, and today the morale is good. We are up to full capacity. We've added on. We've taken over the airport, which is 10 people there, which is another service, and it does put strength in our department a little bit.
Okay, today, let me just interrupt you, Tony. Today we are at 85 men and women.
But
that includes 10 people.
10 at the airport.
Okay.
We want to keep in mind that those 10 are really not for Burlington.
Right.
They're for the airport, and they're being used up there. And so we do have 85, but actually 75 that is for the city of Burlington.
Right. Okay, and I think one of the points that you have been making is that in terms of the actual number of men and women who are in uniform today, who are out on the street, we're doing much better than we have in the past because we have virtually no vacancies. I think we have one vacancy today, which I presume will fill pretty quickly.
And that was just recently. And I think what's important to bring up, that keep in mind that, say we were authorized for 71, but if we have 10 vacancies, it takes time to fill in those 10 vacancies. So that means that we were 15 to 20 short at many months. And when you do keep them up, keep your vacancy filled, and we have a better method of recruiting. So we're probably today, maybe 10 better than we ever have been. And we had said in the past, and it was proposed last year, again, that we needed 18 to 20 people. At the late 70s, we had proposed that, but again, we didn't have a house in order, so that's why we didn't come in. And now we have our house in order, and I consider the department better today ever since I've been on, since 1970. Incidentally, I've been on a little bit longer than the chief have.
Okay, Chief Scully, you're there long hours every day, and you're on top of the situation. You have the hands-on job as chief of police. From your vantage point, how does the situation look? How are we doing? Where do we have to go?
In the last few years, we have experienced a lot of positive growth at Burlington Police Department. We've initiated a number of special units, already entranced. The Parks and Beach unit is one of them, which is a summer concentration in the recreational areas of the city of Burlington by use of college-age students who receive training from Burlington Police in a number of methods of applying citizen compliance to the law in a very cooperative fashion. We also have the sexual assault education unit in place, which comes to us as a result of a federal grant through the Human Services Agency of the state of Vermont. And in that particular situation, we have a unique combination of detective services and uniformed services. We have a detective services coordinator that works with 4 uniformed police officers which allows us to have personnel available for every shift to respond to that particular need. We also find that when we have a unit of that nature in place, that we experience more calls and more reports of the incident because people who are victims of sexual assault need to have in place a sensitive group of people that can deal with the complicated issues around sexual assault. And interestingly enough, with the task force attachment to this unit, we have a networking, which makes it even more positive in terms of the victim being able to get back on their feet. We have put together a waterfront marine response, which is unique in that it's police and fire working together, and our primary focus in that area is to be able to get out into the Burlington waterways for any medical emergency. We have the boat at Burlington Police, and Burlington Fire have all of the life support equipment, so we've put together a team that is responsive to that kind of need if ever it arises. We have investigatively intensified our efforts from both the Detective Services Bureau side as well as the Uniform Enforcement side. In the Detective Services Bureau, we have reorganized under the command of Commander Glenn Button, the Detective Bureau, so that they are responding to the issue of drugs in our community.
Let me stop you right there, because obviously drugs is an issue that everybody is very, very concerned about. As you well know, I'm sure better than I, many of the crimes that we see are one way or another related to drugs.
Absolutely.
Specifically, without obviously giving more details than you can give, which is understandable, how have we been responding to the problems of drugs?
What we did as of July 1 this year was to organize within the Bureau a special unit of 3 people who would work in concert with state police and the DEA Drug Task Force.
That's the federal government.
That's the federal government.
We're working with the state and federal police.
That's correct. And we commit 2 of our personnel to the DEA Task Force for added support in that effort. And what we have managed to do is coordinate our investigations on a tiered level. We have local investigations that are conducted by our special unit, and then we share information and vice versa with state police who are working on the state level. And then obviously the DEA task force works at a much higher level, more intense level. That's the level where it becomes very, very expensive to conduct the investigation. And then that information is shared. So it's a very comprehensive, coordinated effort. And in our particular situation, we have dovetailed into that investigative team the whole issue of recovery of stolen property, which is the linkage to the numbers of crimes that we would experience on the perimeter of the central issue, drugs and illegal substance in the community. So from those fronts, we have become very intense. In the uniform side, we have moved to reorganize some of the shift configuration, and one of the unique situations that we're developing is a special enforcement group within the uniform force that will deal with a lot of the enforcement issues around ordinance, the motor vehicle code, special issues for neighborhoods when they arise, the Old North End, for example, who might have some special neighborhood issues that need attention, or the New North End, as we might recall a number of years ago, we had a series of house breaks in that area. That uniformed special enforcement force will be able to move around. In conjunction with all of that, we have also developed a personnel development program in which people will be rotating, and one of the uniformed special enforcement force people will move into the Detective Bureau for a 30-day period to get that experience. Our police community relations and crime prevention initiatives and efforts have just been building over the past 2 years, and I think a very dramatic way. We've maintained the services that we had in the past, for example, the Officer Friendly program, and we've added to that the DARE project, which is the Drug Alcohol Resistance Education Unit, and that makes the linkage for us from kindergarten right through the 6th grade. It's a very critical time for children when, as they move on into their middle education years, will be under the pressure of peers to experiment, and we're ahead of that. We're ahead of that kind of an issue. Our Police Community Relations Unit has been working diligently in neighborhoods. We have the Explorer Post 800, which is sponsored by us with the Boy Scouts of America, and our Crime Prevention Unit has, to date, organized 40 neighborhood watches throughout the city. And those neighborhood watches are the direct energy of residents of the city living together and understanding that there is a responsibility to share in protecting the neighborhood, and are organized, and we have a telephone system network. One of our most unique groups that is underway right now is the Lower Church Street Neighborhood Watch, which is a combination of businesses and residents. And we're very proud of their initiative and very happy that they're underway. And they need to organize for the purposes of making their neighborhood a better place.
Okay, and Chief, if some of the viewers out there are interested in the Neighborhood Watch program, they can call up the police department and get information as to how to set up.
They can call Burlington Police Department at 658-2700, ask for the Crime Prevention Police Community Relations Unit, and the unit supervisor is Sergeant Gordon Gilbert. Just ask for Sergeant Gilbert, and he'll put you in touch with the right members of staff, so that if you're interested in organizing, we're certainly more than happy to help you out in doing that.
Okay, let me just go here to Tony and ask him a few questions. Tony, I think we're all in agreement that in a wide variety of areas, we're in better shape than we were before when making progress. But obviously, more has to be done. Why don't you talk about what your ideas are for the future and what you would like to see done for the Burlington Police Department?
Well, yes, we've added on many, many new services. We need more. One of my pet demand would be that we put on more foot traffic patrol on the Church Street area, and have a backdoor checkup. For an example, many people forgets to lock the door in their store, and knows to invite them to break in. At the same time, I think it brings us up to date who's in the alleyway and who, and if they know we're going to check, we could prevent it. I think our big wishes are that, not that so much that we catch these criminals, so forth, so on. How many can we prevent? And this is our real goal. One of our goals, of course, besides adding on personnel, is a new building. 4 or 5 years ago, we had proposed a new building, a police department, a community center together. And at the time, there was supposed to be some federal money, and that fell through.
Tony, let me interrupt you if I might. You and I know why we think the present building is inadequate, but maybe you might want to explain to the people why we feel that way.
Well, the building was never adequate, had to be, from the start. At the same time, and I'm not criticizing the other commissioners like that, because it was so much better than what they had, but that's not the real answer. It wasn't really divided up properly to the specs of the police department, and even half of it was an old building at the time.
What was it originally, an ice cream?
Ice cream, yeah.
But an ice cream factory?
Yeah, Frojoy. And the freezers were there, and that's why it's all cement in the back. And
when did the police department move in there? Who, roughly speaking?
I would say in the early 60s or about
1966.
1966.
We've
Yeah.
been in there since? Okay.
And I understand from the past chiefs that they were never brought in, and this is something we're not doing, never brought in to really work over the plan. That somebody said, well, this is a pretty good building, and we'll divide it this way, and here they are. So anyway, we want to plan a building that will not only manage our present situation, but 20 years down the road. Not that we're going to build a big building for 20 years down the road, but design it that it can be expanded at that particular location. Then we realized that the fire department also needed, they're in bad shape, need a new building. So now we're concentrating to have a building for the police department as well as the police department, fire and police. And then the police department has planned to do all the communication, and which is we do a lot of it now. We do it at 9/11, so we have it's a lot of work ahead. This merging the two departments in the same building takes a lot of planning. So it can't be done this month, next month. We've got at least 6 more months, because it not only, particularly the fire department, they have all the substation that some are very old, they want to abandon and build new one, and their headquarters. So it's a bigger problem for them to put pieces together than it is for us. And if it should not work out, which I think it will, and there's no reason why it would not, then they'll go back on our own and have the police station by itself. But our building is in bad, and it was bad when we first moved in.
Okay, now in addition to the new facilities, I think one of the things that we are in agreement on is that we should be moving toward an expansion of the police force, the number of people on the department.
Yes.
Within the next 5 years, adding, hopefully 5 years from now, we'll have 20 more, maybe in increments of 4 or 5 a year. Is that right?
We hope to put on 5 within the next year, maybe 3 to 6 months, we'd have 5 more, and then add on, because we can't really put on 16, because, they have to train. But it takes really a year by the time they're on the street. Now, they might do some services to replace some of the other uniform people, but to have them really know the city and go through their training and so forth, so on, it really takes about 1 year. And then a lot of time, before the 1 year on probation, they're not cutting the ice, so there's no use keep them on, and so we have to start all over again. So this is another thing we're working on, which we'll have this coming year in the spring, is a substation in North Avenue, which has been long coming. This, we have the location, we have the money for it, and the specs are going out this coming week, I guess.
Are they going out to bid this week, Lonnie?
Yeah.
We have the...
All the specs
bid
are
books
available now,
The
are they?
books are
Yep.
being reviewed, they're
Yep.
not back yet,
Yep.
but I met with our city attorney this morning, and it's in the final stages of review, and the final bid books will be ready, so
when do you think
we'll start the
we'll-
advertising.
Do you think by the spring it will be,
Oh, yes.
Very definitely, by spring, the substation will be open, and we're really orchestrating around some of our summer activities, because one of the activities that we will stage from that location will be the Paxton Beach unit from the substation.
Okay. June 1st, the latest, because it's not a big job, it's only a $20,000.
Right.
The building is there, some remodeling inside, so it'll take a very short
okay, you
time.
should tell the people where the building is going to be located.
It's on Letty Park, right in back of the North Avenue Shopping Center, and this will accomplish many things. One, if the citizen from the new North End can come there for the driving license or any complaint like that. At the same time, there's a lot of activity on the Letty Park. Our police department will be there, and having somebody visible there, automatically, I think it cuts down the possibility of break-in and so forth, so on. So I think we're heading the right way. We have a lot more work to do, and I'm sure 5 years from now we'll have a lot more work to do. We got to keep up. I think what we're trying to do now is catch up. We had unfortunately a few bad years, and I guess it goes up and down, and we weathered the storm. I think after the storm was all over, we were bigger and better, and we were better. We ended up with Kevin Scully. So am I right, Kevin? We're bigger and better.
Absolutely.
So anyway, it's a pleasure to work with Kevin, and it's been a lot of fun for me. And as the chief will tell you, it does demand a tremendous amount of hour. And this is what the commissioners. I think if the commissioners are no good to anybody if they just come in for the meeting and vote yes or no on something. I think they got to get involved, and I think this is what I've done. This has been a nice city. I owe it to the city, and it's been a lot of fun working with the police department. And we don't accept defeat.
Let me ask, while we're chatting about police matters, I am not sure, Kevin, that the people, average citizens, know the process by which police officers are asked to go through before they're accepted to the department. I think sometimes people may say, well, gee, I need a job, I think I'll go to the police department and just walk in and get a job. First of all, tell us a little bit about the process and what percentage of the applicants actually end up being on the Burlington Police Department.
Surely. It's a very long process, and one that is very specific in nature. The easiest part of the whole process is filling out the short form application, as we refer to it, which gives us information about an individual, enough so that we can enter them into a computer program that we maintain for a call-up for written examination. After the whole process is done, very rarely do we see more than 6% of an application file accepted for service at the Burlington Police Department. So we're talking about every 100 requests or 100 applications, only 6 getting into the very final stages of acceptance. But let me review what the process is all about. After you've accomplished the easiest part of the whole process, you would be notified for a written examination. The written examination is a general aptitude test. It reviews, if you will, your knowledge of mathematics, vocabulary, your ability to comprehend those kinds of fields for entry into the police service. This particular test comes as a result of testing not only in the police field but in the private sector, and it is validated through that testing here in the state of Vermont. So one of the things that we're very proud about is that the testing unit is related to a validated battery of tests that were administered here in the state. We have a psychological portion that goes along with it, and we're fortunate to have a consultant who leads the psychologicals and provides us with a report, and that report will determine whether the individual is suited for police service, and again, it's specific to the state of Vermont. Dr. Chris Barthol at Castleton is the advisor, and what he does is sends us back a report after a testing unit, which is a confidential report on each individual applicant. If the applicant has successfully passed the written examination, which means that you have to pass with better than 70%, and has a psychological evaluation that fits within the limits that we set as a police organization for acceptance, then the individual is ready to appear before an oral board. At this point, there's a rank ordering of those test results, and it places individuals on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 to 20, and we start the oral board process.
Who is on the oral board?
The oral board is comprised of Burlington police staff officers, and we always invite a member of the community, one of the business people from the community, to serve on the oral board. One of the things that we're very interested in having is the perspective of the citizen as the interview process is ongoing. The interview takes approximately an hour, and it deals with, for the most part, issues around an individual's propensity, for example, in the use of alcohol or any other substance, their understanding of what the enforcement of law really means. We're very interested in their backgrounds and the opportunity for them to share with us what they think is important about their own personal lives. After the oral board is completed and an individual is advised then and there of successful completion, a medical examination is ready, and they will receive an appointment to appear before the medical board. There will be an examination of the individual, and when that report comes back to us and indicates the individual is in good, healthy condition, then we start a very intensive background investigation. And in that background investigation, we will find out just about everything there is to know about the individual. It does not overlook very much at all, but our focus is to provide for the citizens of Burlington the very best individual.
Who does that background? Does the police department itself do it?
We do the background ourselves. Our own investigators do it. They're all trained in doing background investigations and in acquiring information from people that sometimes people don't even really want to share with you. And then in that background investigation, if there are any areas in which there is question, a last opportunity to assure the best possible options to the candidate will lead us to the use of a polygraph for clarification and validation purposes only, and the process has come to an end. That process is brought in its totality to my office and reviewed, and as I review those applicants, I will select based on the needs of the agency and the community. There are all sorts of varied backgrounds. For example, we have people that come to us with backgrounds in psychology, backgrounds in engineering, backgrounds in the sciences. We have folks that come to us from a very outstanding, healthy work background. They've established a very excellent work record. They may not have a broad educational background. We weigh all of that out, and we make final selections.
What percentage of the men and women in the police department? By the way, in terms of women, we have how many women on the force?
Right now, we have 9 women, and they serve in the uniform capacity, which is one of the bright turns of history for us at Burlington Police.
This is more than I think we've had in the past.
That's more than we've had in the past, yes.
Okay. In terms of, say, police officers with college background, are many of the people coming to us with college backgrounds?
We are seeing more and more applicants with college backgrounds, and it makes the selection process much broader, of course. Right now, in the service of Burlington Police Department, I would say that there are approximately 45% of the organization who have completed to a baccalaureate. Some have master's degrees or are working towards master's degrees, and there are some that are still working toward a baccalaureate. But certainly, the advanced education is.
Okay, let me just mention here, obviously, that if there are, I think there's nothing that would please you more is to see local people apply and join out who know the city of Burlington, who grew up here.
Yes.
So if there are men and women who are interested in serving in the Burlington Police Department, they can simply get application forms from the department itself?
That's absolutely correct. Again, just call Burlington Police Department, the Administrative Services Bureau, 658-2700. Commander John King or Lieutenant Roy Gates would be the people to be in touch with, and they would start you on the application process at a point well taken. Sometimes people feel very uncomfortable about serving in the police department in the community that they grew up in. It really doesn't make a difference. Law enforcement is really a science. It's people management, and an individual who grew up here can enforce the laws here.
Hey, Chief, I can see that we're running out of time, and what I would simply like to say to you at this time, and I think I speak for the people of all of Burlington, is to congratulate your department for the excellent job which it appears that they have done in terms of the recent murder that took place in the city. You have the respect of the whole city. Okay, Tony, we just have a little bit of time left. Any parting thoughts?
Well, I think my parting thought is, I guess, that's sort of a dream come true of what the department is now, and the new personnel and the new building coming. So I think we have achieved the goal that I've been looking for the past 15 years. So I guess if you fight long enough and don't give up, you win.
Okay, and let me simply conclude by thanking Commissioner Tony Pomerleau and Police Chief Kevin Scully for joining me today. To say that I think, obviously I'm a little bit prejudiced, I think we have a number of outstanding departments here in the city of Burlington, and there's none that's any better than our police department. So I just want to thank both of you for joining me.
Because we think there's only one.
Okay, thank you.
Can I go to work now?